You're watching the free version of Mocha Essentials. Follow along with projects and footage with a premium download available at BorisFX.com. We are back in part 5 of exercise 10, the basics of Roto continued. And this is where we left off in the previous exercise. So we have our newly tracked in sunglasses, which we're going to use as a basis for filling in a lot of the missing detail. So let's organize this out a little bit. Let's rename my sunglasses to sunglasses track, and we'll put that into the right place, into my tracks. I'm going to put my masks, which we used as track mats, into my completed masks. And I'm going to come down to the bottom of the layers palette and just create a new group that I will call track mats. And I'll bring this one right down to the bottom. Turn off visibility and processing. Right. So let's see what we've got. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is start to roto the face out. And we can do this the fast way or the proper way. Now, the fast way is to treat most of this as one big shape. Bring that in. And the proper way would be to break it down into several smaller shapes. Because of what we're doing with this particular shot and we're trying to rotate the whole thing out, we don't have to worry about things like the ears. Like all the ears area, that's all going to get covered by hair. So there's no point in spending a lot of time doing lots of details on the ears, either the left ear or the right ear, because they're all either, literally covered with hair, or they're going to be filled in with the hair shapes. So let's just come to a frame very close to where we started with the glasses actually here, which is 1 second and 1 frame in. And let's create up a new shape. So this is the fast way of doing it. And I'm going to not worry too much about the hair. We're just going to be worried about the main face. Let's turn off the surface that we were looking at with the sunglasses. Okay, so now we've got the main face here. Let's connect this to our sunglasses track. And I'm going to call this one face mask. And let's see what our sunglasses track gives us. Okay, it's pretty good there. So it's given us that planar movement, which is fine just to help stabilize things out. But obviously it's not what we're aiming for. I'm going to hit stabilize the viewer up at the top. And let's go to where she turns her face. So at this point, let's get this fitting in properly. In fact, before we do anything, let's come to the first keyframe, right click on one of the handles and smooth everything out. We'll come over there where it moves the most, and let's start to just fit this into place a bit more. Know what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. I'm not going to be worried too much about the nose because we are going to have to deal with the nose separately. But what I will do is maybe worry a little bit more about the chin. And I'm going to come over onto my toolbar and use the pointer tool with a plus. So what this lets me do is add points to my spline. So you can see as I go over the spline, we can add a point and bring that into place. And when I'm done adding points, we'll come over here and just expand this back and out a little bit. Let's take a look at how that goes back in. So long as we're not kind of going over the line, which we are here, I'm not worried too much. Let's add this in here. Let's come in to my chin. Chin goes in there. There we go. That should be all right. Then we're just going to go back up and check for drifting points. There we go. It's much better to spend a little bit of time getting these details right in the first couple of keyframes than it is trying to chase a tail later on. Okay, so now let's come to the end, just right about there, which is actually the first frame, and we'll shift the rest of this into place. Am I worried about this area overlapping? Nope, because this is going to be part of the shape anyway. Am I worried about this not overlapping? Yes, I am, because that should be cut out. So it's about picking where you want your important bits to be. Then we'll do the same over on the other side. So this is where it's drifted the most. Bring this back into place. Bring this out just a little bit. I'm not worried about this gap because this gap is going to be filled in by the hair. At least I hope it is. Just need to be a little bit careful on this bit. Should be fine there. We should also bring this area out as well. I should have done that on the previous keyframe, but we'll do that again. There we go. So this animation doesn't really matter too much. It's not too bad, but it's not great either. Right, this does matter a little bit more. So you can see this is drifting a lot. So we'll just slide this into place. I think I will actually have to add in another point there. I didn't really want to, but I don't see another way around it. Now, the problem is once we add another point in there, we need to go through all of the keyframes and make sure that this is sitting in the right place. So we can go down to the bottom here and we can just skip through to the next keyframe. I can see that isn't sitting in the right place because that should be down here. I'm not worried too much about this. As long as we're not going over the line, outside onto the background, then I'm absolutely fine with just the few gaps that are going to be filled in with the hair. Let's look to the back over here, or the front, I should say, of the clip. Yeah. I think that's going to work. And you can see now, if you think back to how imperfect our sunglasses track was, it's actually good enough to drive this shape where we're going to have to do a bit of work anyway. I'm going to bring these down because I don't like the thought of adding another keyframe here. So I'll just make these 2 points actually fit a bit better so we don't have to worry about that there. Yeah. That's good. Cool. All right. So that is the first bit. So that's the first, the main face. Let's come in and think about hair. Let's destabilize our viewer and zoom to fit again. And let's look at hair. Now, hair is tricky. No getting around it. Hair is tricky. And we can get really detailed with hair, or we can do what we're going to do in this case and be quite sort of cavalier with what we're doing with the hair and sort of just, make a few basic shapes for it. And we'll start over on let's have a little look. Let's start on the right-hand side first, because we can't make one big shape for hair. The hair is just moving around far too much and doing lots of different sorts of movements for us to do, one big shape. So I'm going to break it into one side for the right-hand side, and over on the left-hand side, we're going to have one big major clump of hair, which is the main hair on the left. And we're also going to have a look at this front strand here. This is moving in a slightly different way. So we're going to have another shape that's just going to be describing this bit of hair. Okay, so with that in mind, let's find our start frame, which I think is going to be 103, I think is where we can see all of the hair. Let's bring our face mask into the completed masks for now. The nice thing about these groups is we can transfer things in and out of them. We're not sort of stuck with it like that. And let's create another X-spline for the hair. I'm just going to start a little bit off screen just so we get that main shape. I'm not going to be too worried. And just basically end it in the middle. Let's make that a bit kind of smoother. There we go. Bring that back in. Excellent. I'm not worried about the flyaways. And let's call this one hair right. And just keep our naming convention correct, I'm going to say hair right mask. And let's connect this again to our sunglasses track. Let's see if that helps us out. And that's probably not bad, actually. If this didn't work, or if this didn't help enough, then obviously we can just link this to the background track and do it manually. Okay, let's try and get this into place. Holding down the Control or Command key as always, just to bring that transform box into the right place, either distorting or skewing it. And let's clock plop. There we go. So that's where it's gone out the most. Work big to small and go to the end, and we'll do the similar sort of thing. Because the hair's splitting in the middle, what I will do is I'll get the sort of biggest movements done with the whole box, and then I'll quickly come in and change sort of half the control points at a time. So we sort of break up that shape into a top and bottom half when just with selections. Around about there is probably where it's come out again. Let's move that into place. Change the color on it, bright green, so we can actually see it. There's lots of other stuff going on. I don't mind that, simply because it sort of tells me where it is I have to, be extra careful about filling in the details. So here I know I have to be a bit careful on this side, but down here, so long as this is out of the way, let's move this one as well. So long as that's out of the way, then that should be fine. There we go. Yeah, that's moving in a nice kind of direction. Let's find where it's most out, the point of maximum drift, and bring that back into place. Maybe just expand that out just a little bit. That's still taking in that. Yeah. Let's take this last little bit. Just that's around about there. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. It's not the prettiest, but it's going to do. Let's just maybe make that a little bit bigger so we know what we're filling in. And let's turn on the overlays and we'll go to all mattes again. And just to make sure that we've not got any unexpected gaps. Yeah, I think that fits what we were trying to do with that side. And let's go now and do the other side quickly. I want to make sure that I do have a nice overlay between the two blocks of hair. What I don't want is to end up with just like a thin strip in the middle that we haven't got a roto shape for. Now here's an interesting frame, because we look at the motion. Do we want to come in and try to get all of this movement of the hair, that little movement out and back in again with the same shape? And I would contend that we don't, because that goes against what we're trying to do with our main, with our main shapes. We're trying to keep them simple. So by ignoring this big bit of hair that comes in and out, we're keeping the movement of the main block of hair nice and simple. Now, the consequence of that is we have to then create another shape to get this other piece of hair, but that's fine. And that's, one of the things we did say at the start of this as well. So I think keeping things simple and straightforward means that there's going to be less time spent sort of chasing your tail a little bit later, and more time to do fun things that isn't always rotoscoping. I'd also contend that maybe using the sunglasses track on this particular piece of hair, especially for this side of it, isn't necessarily the best idea, because the movement is just, it's so different. It's not coplanar with the sunglasses at all. So possibly just connecting this to the background track would have been a better idea. But I don't think we're in too bad a shape anyway. I just think, maybe if we were to do it again, that would be something that we would think about a bit more in a bit more detail. But even so, it's not been, too tricky for us. Though I'm not a huge fan of this animation, actually. So what do? When something's gone wrong like this, what is it that we're going to do? Well, here we go. We're going to start off at our first frame, which is where we started the shape. And I'm going to change this from the sunglasses track now. And I am just going to change this to the background track. And because we are back at the first frame, it doesn't look like anything's changed, which is great. But if we go through now, we might find, depending on how different the track is, we might find that our shapes themselves aren't sitting exactly where we want them to. And if that was the case, we can sort of get rid of them, delete them, either just by deleting the keyframes at the bottom down here, or by deleting all the keyframes using this button here. Now, I actually don't mind where we've ended up with this one. I think we're in pretty good shape. The only thing I'm looking at is I'm looking at this seam up at the top here, just to make sure that we're not having any gaps, and we are a little bit here. So I'm just going to bring that over just to close that gap off. What's another way that we could check to see if we've got any gaps? Yep, by turning on all of our masks one more time. Let's turn off all the overlays, and let's just play this back. Okay, so what is it we're missing now? Well, not a lot, actually. We're missing sunglasses. We're missing that second bit of hair over here. And maybe we could afford to be a bit more generous with the hair over at the right-hand side. And at the front, we're maybe missing a bit of lip and a bit of nose as well. So all in all, we're in very, very good shape here. So in this exercise, we've looked at rotoscoping the face and the hair using tracks that we've already worked with. So for the face, we had to pay particular attention to areas where the skin was going to hit the background, or areas where the shape was going to overlap and hit the background. And that sometimes necessitated adding a few extra points, being careful that when we added the points, that they didn't have bad repercussions further down the timeline. When it came to the hair, we were very aware about how we split that hair up. Looking at the right-hand side, looking at the left-hand side, and any bits that might not fit within those basic shapes. And also importantly, if things weren't going right with the track layer that we had connected things to, and it looked like we were going to have to spend a lot of time fixing the track, instead of fighting with that track, we changed what we connected that to. So in this example, I was able to easily connect it back to the background track and everything fit in perfectly. Very nice. If that's not the case, then sometimes you'll just have to retrack something else, or even just start again. Sometimes it's faster to start again on a particular layer than it is to try and fight bad tracking data and then the bad animation that you've added on top of that. And I just wanted that to sink in a little bit, because that trick there is something that can save you hours of work. If you're headed down a line, even though you've got this big deadline going against you, just shouting at you all the time, to saying, here's the deadline, it's not shifting. Sometimes it can be better, instead of just powering through, adding keyframe after keyframe after keyframe, just take a step back, retrack, rethink, reorganize, and that will actually save you a lot of time. I think we should take a break now. Off camera, I'm going to just fill in this last little bit of hair and maybe make a couple of touch-ups to the hair on the right-hand side and do the sunglasses, so that when you join me back in exercise 11, where we actually go to use the masks, we have something that we can use completely. So we've gone through a lot in exercise 10, obviously. Take a little time to reflect on that, and I'll see you in exercise 11. You've been watching the free version of Mocha Essentials. To download all videos, projects and footage, purchase the premium version available at BorisFX.com.